feed. Okay, that should be.
This giant
And we're going to see if this is the right one.
all working towards one goal. It doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter what they believe. They are all fighting to end childhood cancer, and I think that's something that should be celebrated.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org. This is WC.
Good morning and God bless you. So happy to be here today, and great seeing all of fellow pushers on yesterday.
Oh, it really was. I know you and Dwight resolved the problems of the world. Oh, man.
Miss Jackson, I can't hear the Reverend.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm going to go to another audio feed. Talking, Pastor. Can you hear her now? Okay, can you hear her now? Keep talking, Vicki. Okay, keep on talking. Now.
And we are grateful for this day that the Lord has made. We are rejoicing. Still very long.
Okay. Keep on talking, Vicki. We're just trying to find the right channel. No, that's wrong. Speaker. Okay.
As we keep working together, I know that we will find the right space and the right place.
That's fine. Perfect.
Okay,
We can
okay, perfect.
have the perfect spell.
All right. Okay, so we're good.
Military and veteran caregivers across the nation.
We're
We
good.
have our own journey. And
We are good.
Okay, and I need to send you Aaron Connolly's number for 6:30.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, thank you so much, honey. Appreciate it.
Very well.
And I will send that to you right away.
And better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you
Oh,
by
boy.
AARP and the Ad Council.
Oh, and I need to send you Dr. Reeves
My daughter started
for 7. Okay.
1 minute. Okay.
Can you give me another minute?
I tell her,
Yes.
Thank you so much.
that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. If there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around. And I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself. And me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike and you didn't? I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves. And all I had to do was be there.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
See that cute little dog in the pet store window? Chances are it came from a puppy mill, a breeding facility.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
And often sick dogs to
Okay, I just sent you
to be sold for
the 6:30 and the 7. I might add someone else at 6:30. Oh, see, I'm gonna have to stay away from the mic because you see the feedback I'm getting.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Purchase your next pet. Animal shelters are full of amazing pets looking for a home. When you adopt your new best friend, not only are you
It's an overcorrection. I get it.
30 seconds.
When friends see the smart choice and impact you've made, they adopt their next pet and share with 5 of their friends, who share with 5 more. Before long, thousands get involved. Pet stores stop selling dogs from puppy mills, and even more lives are saved. And with your help, we can save them all.
10 seconds.
Visit bestfriends.org/puppymills to learn more.
Stand by.
WCPT 820, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I agree.
Hey everybody, it's the Santita Jackson Show. It's been wonderful seeing all of you at the Rainbow Push International Conference. It wraps up today, the Women's Luncheon, which is probably the biggest event at the convention. But boy, Reverend Dr. Freddie Haynes was on fire yesterday, and you were on fire at the Financial Literacy Forum. We had a fantastic array of people, and I'm so grateful for your support. Indeed, thank you, Megget Financial, for sponsoring it. And so many people had a lot of questions about their finances, Pastor Vicki Johnson. And they also wanted to know, it was interesting, they said that they were very engaged by the panel. And I'm so grateful to Melissa Rizzi and Joan Esposito, who pulled all of this together. I was the moderator, found some guests, yes, but this was the idea of Joan Esposito and of course, the brainchild of Melissa Rizzi, and Matt Cummings always keeps it together, and Bill and Devin made it work. And I just want to thank the whole WCPT family for making it work. And thank you, Rainbow Push. We've got a lot to talk about today. If you've been following what's been happening in Texas, I know everybody's paying attention to what's happening with Donald Trump. That's great. It is what it is. And we'll continue to talk about that. And call me at 773-763-9278 here at WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. If you want to talk about Trump and his legal troubles today, or his supporters' legal troubles. But I also want to talk to you about what's happening in Texas. It really speaks to our humanity. This is the headline from Common Dreams. Biden is urged to stop the monstrous Texas policy of pushing migrant children back into the Rio Grande and denying them water. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We're going to push them back into that river, which is basically an ocean, and we're going to deny them water. Really? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that at the bottom of the hour. I want to know what you think about that and what we need to do about it. What we need to do about it. Everybody if in the United States is not from here. Black people were brought here against our will, but everybody else came here or they were run out of their homes. That's kind of against your will too. That having been said, this speaks to our humanity. And you say we want to have an educated people. I don't know, maybe that's just my thing. But the GOP is advancing a bill that could remove 220,000 teachers from the classrooms. Now, mind you, we already have a shortfall of 300,000 educators in the public school system in the United States already. What is going on, America? Call me at 773-763-9278. Oh, yeah. I mean, they'd be cutting programs left and right and left. And I'm going to read you a list, and it's going to blow your mind. So let's talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show today. It's a beautiful, 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 beautiful day here at WCPT 820. The nation's largest progressive talk radio station. And I want to know what your thoughts are with respect to these stories and with respect to just what's happening in the news. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 79 degrees. It'll be mostly sunny, and that's a good thing. Hey, everybody. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 89 degrees and rain. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 10, the Mariners 3, the Cubs 17, the Nationals 3, the Mets 11, and the White Sox 10, both high-scoring, exciting games. Everybody, call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCBT. I want to know what's on your mind today, and I want to thank you for being at the Rainbow Push International Conference. What is happening in the news? Well, extreme heat, blisteringly hot temperatures are being reported all around the world, breaking records on multiple continents of the United States. Swaths of the country will be routinely in the triple digits this week. That is past 100 degrees. Record-breaking heat is likely for the Four Corner states: Texas, Lower Mississippi Valley, South Florida. Everybody, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this? What do you think about this extreme weather? Call me at 773-763-9278. Former President Donald Trump said he's been informed by Special Counsel Jack Smith that he is the target of a criminal investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election leading up to the Capitol riot on January 6th. 2021. A target letter from federal prosecutors to Trump makes clear that they are focused on his actions in their probe and not just on those around him who tried to stop his election loss. The move is a sign that Trump may soon be charged again, making it his third indictment. He already has been indicted twice this year, first in New York, and on Tuesday, the judge overseeing the documents case told prosecutors that a mid-December trial date would be too soon. When are they going to do that, everybody? Tropical storm Calvin, a state of emergency has been declared for more than 1 million people in Hawaii as Tropical Storm Calvin threatens to deliver strong winds and torrential rain to the Big Island. It has been more than 2.5 years since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the U.S. intelligence community has yet to reach a conclusion, about where the virus originated. We hear a lot of things. Was it the lab? Was it in Wuhan? What do you think happened, everybody? The Wuhan Institute of Virology in China is at the center of a theory that COVID-19 escaped from the lab in late 2019, triggering the global pandemic and nearly 7 million recorded deaths. This week, the Biden administration suspended funding for the Wuhan Research Lab following a months-long review that revealed some safety concerns. The virus was first identified in Wuhan, China, but researchers have denied that the lab is related to the outbreak. A bus carrying dozens of migrants from Texas arrived in Los Angeles Tuesday evening, the fourth such bus to arrive in the city in recent weeks, according to a nonprofit. This occurs as Texas Governor Gregory Abbott and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have sent thousands of migrants to Democratic-led states in protest of the Biden administration's immigration and border efforts. Of course, we will be talking about what's happening in Texas. They're not only sending people away, but putting children back in the water, and they're denying them water when they are thirsty. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Vicki Johnson, you know it's Wednesday, and it is time to have a pastor of not just one, but two churches. Oh, my word. I love it. How are you?
I am doing great, Santita. So good to see you yesterday.
Wonderful.
And you are looking great. Birthday girl.
Thank you, girl. Well, talk to me. Well, how can we worship with you? Let me get that.
Okay, you can worship with me at Lebanon Lutheran at 13100 South Manistee at 9 a.m. each Sunday, and then again at St. Thomas Lutheran at 80th and Jeffrey Boulevard at 11:30 a.m. for an hour of power.
I love it. Oh, I need some good news. I always need good news, Pastor Johnson.
All right. Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to all of your morning stars and friends. There is good news. There is a summer blockbuster film that came out last week entitled Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. This series of movies stemmed from the 1966 to 73 television series of the Impossible Mission Force. It was a rainbow coalition of spies with various skills and abilities who worked in harmony to perform successfully in whatever the assignment might be. So was the case with this movie. Women were masterminds with double the strength of any man, fighting and winning. It brought to my mind the power and strength of the women in The Woman King. For those who have not seen the movie, I will not give the plot, but know that the Impossible Mission Force was given another assignment that really was impossible, and it took them across the globe. When Tom Cruise or others would give an assignment to a member of the team that really was impossible, and they didn't want to perform the task, they would ask, "How am I supposed to do that?" And he would tell them, "Figure it out." Life is filled with assignments that have been given to each of us that seem to be impossible. We might lack the experience. We might lack the intelligence. We might not have the strength. We might not even have the willpower. It just feels like a mission impossible. But in Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verses 5 and 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge God, and God will direct your path. Yes, life has its impossible missions that really should not be impossible for us. Missions of completing educational goals, missions of building lasting relationships, missions of economic development, missions of creating a criminal justice system that is just, missions of policing that deal with mental health issues differently than criminal issues, missions of liberty and justice for all. Impossible? But if we trust in God with all of our hearts and do not lean to our own understanding, if in all of our ways we acknowledge God, we will figure it out. Trust God, and you will be able to figure it out, working in harmony with those surrounding you, just like the impossible mission force. You will figure it out. If you will do this, and I believe that you will, then to me, that's good news.
I love that. You know, God does not send you someplace unprepared, ill prepared.
That's right.
You just have to believe that. You're absolutely right. And you know, Reverend, my father often says to you, because he gives you these tasks that you think are impossible, but he sees something in you, and he'll tell you, figure it out. He said to me on a couple of occasions, do you want the opportunity or not? Okay. And then he's done. He's done. He has nothing else.
And that in essence is saying, figure it out.
Figure it out. No, there's nothing else yet in me. He's like, okay, what? I guess because he's had to do that. And not only that, it just helps, it develops muscles in you that you don't even know are there. How can we worship with you on Sunday?
Sundays at Lebanon Lutheran, 13100, South Manistee at 9 a.m., and St. Thomas Lutheran, 80th and Jeffrey Boulevard at 11:30 a.m. for an hour of power, and both can be seen on Facebook.
Oh, bless your heart. Sending you so much love. I love Pastor Vicki Johnson. Love her, love her, love her, love her. I'm about to send you something that might please you, Pastor Johnson. Pastor Vicki, send me a text and let me know what you think. Something that you've been trying to get me to do. And so I'm going
to... Lord, I know what it is. Yes.
Gosh, okay, Lita McLean. I mean, I'm sorry, Pastor Vicki Johnson. I love this woman, but I thank you for the encouragement. I do. I really do. More than I can say. I love you so much. Amen. I love you, Pastor Johnson. Hey, everybody, call me at 773-763-9278. What do you think about these 220,000 teachers who could be eliminated from America's classrooms? Do you think that's the right thing to do? What do you think about that? Call me, text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. We've got Dr. Shanina Knight, and I was talking about you. Several people and I were talking about you to the governor of KwaZulu-Natal yesterday from South Africa, because they are in dire need of healthcare professionals. They have 200 doctors in that province alone who are unfunded, if you can believe that. They're not working. I mean, because they don't have any money, so they can't even take the bus someplace. Can you believe it? 200 doctors who have no salaries. How does that work? Well, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Santita. So it's interesting. I always laugh because, and it's laughing, but it's laughing in one of those things of like pain in a way, because it's like even too, you mentioned in the situation with, the teachers and the layoffs. And it's bad because like I've even seen it happen with all of these virtual learning options. You have parents, some out of necessity, some out of laziness, honestly, that do just allow their kids to sit at home and learn. As that relates to health, when we're thinking about a kid that's sitting in front of a computer for hours and hours and hours that are doing activities, do not have, let's say, access to, physical education, or gym, if we would have it, not having access to being able to move around, we don't recognize this, but we know that sitting is the new smoking, meaning that individuals that sit around that do not walk on a regular basis put themselves at risk for a lot of health illnesses. Like they really do. It increases, the chances of the risk of heart disease. It increases the risk for stroke. It does so many things when you don't get up and walk and you have a sedentary lifestyle. And so it is disturbing when you think about posture as well, of a child not necessarily having the proper posture chair at home to be able to sit for those long duration of hours, or being forced to be able to do so. So that kid could be sitting on the floor, they could be sitting in a chair that's not favorable, and we don't think about the adverse health consequences that can occur as a result of a child being at home. We also don't think about what does that living environment look like, meaning, I say this all the time, but if you can smell it, then you can inhale it, and if you can inhale it, that means that you can also put yourself at risk unknowingly of being sick. Well, this is something that tends to happen often, but it's overlooked when we talk about illnesses amongst children and the fact that they might be at home exposed to things that are not favorable. So whether that is, let's say, something that's spoiled in the refrigerator, again, being able to inhale those fumes of something that's spoiled. It could mean, again, depending on where it is that they live, having to deal with industrial fumes, because we know that this is a real thing in regards to like lower income neighborhoods being put towards these industrial plants. So the one thing that I concern myself with, and as it relates to health, is when we are talking about children being at home because of this virtual learning option, teachers being laid off, what are the long-term consequences that our children will have and that they will see as early adults, including blood clots, as a result of kids not getting up and moving around enough because they don't have that as an option, because they're not in school physically.
That is a whole lot, which is why they need you not just here in the United States, but in South Africa and around the world. Infection prevention. She makes you think, everybody. Please go visit Dr. Shanina Knight and join her on social media. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. HEYDRNA. That's 8 at HEYDRNINA. At Hey, Dr. Nina. Hey, Dr. Nina. Wow, it's just disgraceful. The Biden administration has been urged to stop this policy in Texas of pushing migrant children back into the Rio Grande River. You can't make this up. And guess what? Denying them water. Water. I didn't say water. I said water. Oh, come on, you guys. Are you serious right now? Are you serious? Oh. I'll be back with the Santita Jackson Show. Let me know what you think about that. Come on. We shouldn't just do better than that. We got to do right by people, y'all. We want to be blessed. I'll be back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Girl, can you believe that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Y'all, what is wrong with you? Who does that? Ugh.
Yeah. And crazy because it is to believe, but then it's like you look up at it and you say, should I, like, it's hard to not believe some of the craziness that's going on.
Oh man, I mean, and you know what kills me is this man is in a wheelchair. The Texas governor. And I would think that which means he has accessibility issues. He's got other health issues that he's always going to have to deal with. And it's like there is the lack of compassion that this man has is just galling to me. I mean, they were ordered not to give people water. Ordered. I'm like, this is an order? Yeah, it's an order. What is wrong with you? Oh my gosh, girl. I mean, my heart just cracked. Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
You mean it's an order? No, don't give them water. No, really? No, it's an order, which means you can lose your job. Okay, well, then y'all gonna have to lose this, because, buddy, you know, I got to answer to God. Y'all are mean. This is wicked, and you all need to call it what it is. This is just wickedness in high places, and you've seen evidence of it every single day. You ought to be disgusted by this. Then you want to fire 220,000 more teachers. Well, we already have a 300,000 teacher shortfall in the United States. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm sounding like my grandmother. What's wrong with you? Oh boy.
Yeah. And again, things like you hear, unbelievable to even hear, and then when you hear somebody saying like, "Oh, we should be about education. Education is important. Oh, the U.S. is falling behind in regards to advancements compared to
Ms. Wells, Reverend Yuri, and Aaron Conley are on.
not investing in education."
Hold on.
So it is.
Hold on 1 second. Chappelle.
Good morning.
When you get off, could you try Miss Lozano?
Yes, I tried it already, but I sent her a text message.
Okay, great. And just let me know. Okay?
All right.
I know
Thank you.
I'm calling people late this morning, but you know, this has been just a little crazy. And I plan, you know. Okay. So, and Marnie's going to be on at the top, talk about this teacher talk about these teachers. So, Pastor Yuri? Hello, Pastor Yuri?
Good morning.
All right, y'all, get to me quickly, because otherwise I pivot. And hey, Aaron? Aaron?
Good morning, Santita.
No worries, you all. Make sure you keep me off mute. And we're going to go. We're going to start with this story, Pastor Yuri, on what's happening at the border in Texas. And we can pivot to Trump, but I think we've got to speak to that. I've gotten some outreach from some of my Latino listeners. But when I first saw the story, I just said, you got to be joking me. I mean, you know what? And honestly, everybody, we should not do breakouts on ethnicity and race or whatever the heck this stuff is that continues to distinguish us from one another. We think you don't push people, young, older, in between, back into the Rio Grande River.
10
and
seconds.
Don't deny them water. And it's an order. That's insane. And it's evil.
Stand by.
It's evil. That's what it is.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about what's happening in Texas. And of course, I'll throw in a little Trump for a little bit of spice. What do you think about what's happening with President Trump and his legal troubles? It looks like he is about to get another indictment. And he'll be running for president under indictment. Who knows? They might arrest him again, and on and on and on. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with that? But I think the story that's not getting enough attention is what's happening with the migrants in the Rio Grande. I mean, and migrants in the South, are coming from all over the world, everybody. They're white, they're brown, they're black. Remember, people from Ukraine came in through Mexico. People from Haiti came in through Mexico. People from South and Central America and North America come in through Mexico. And the Texas troopers have been told to push back the migrants into the Rio Grande, and they've been ordered not to give them water as these heat temperatures are way up in the triple digits. In many of these places, it's 110, 115, 120 degrees. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let me know what you think about this. Call me at 773-763-WCPT. But first, we got Chapearl Wells. What's going on, Miss Chapearl?
Good morning, Santita. And yes, at Celebrations by Us, we are gearing up for your college bound parties. We are doing our trunk parties right now. So give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4526. We're right now scheduling for all of your trunk party giveaways, as well as also we are always cooking, of course. We're doing our cookouts, our ribs, our chicken, our spaghetti, our mac and cheese, our greens, of course. So call us at 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much.
Wait. Stop. Because Pastor Yuri is here. Okay.
I am.
Okay. And so okay. Go on.
Hey, Chapearl, while you were talking, I felt a quickening in my shondo. I felt it as you were kind of calling down that list.
He is simple. And yes, I just called a pastor, an esteemed pastor, one of the most esteemed pulpits in America, crazy. So what do you want her to do before you leave, Pastor Yuri?
Just keep doing what you're doing. You are blessing God's people in a way that will earn your crown.
You better bless God and get him some food, Chapearl. He's been waiting.
I know.
Oh my gosh. What an embarrassment. You're an embarrassment, Todd Yuri, Esquire, Reverend Doctor.
And unapologetically so. I thank you for the kind compliment.
Chapearl, when do you leave, Pastor Yuri?
I have already left. I'm back in Baltimore. I'll be back. You know that airplane flies both ways. I know O'Hare and Midway quite well, intimately.
Well, you come in every week. So there it is. Chapearl.
I got you, Reverend. I got you.
Oh, okay. And she's going to give you, because now she's got to do you, Reverend Dr. Haynes, and Reverend. Of course, no one's thinking about the rest of us, but that's all right. I'm not a preacher.
I'm just going to have to do an all-pastor buffet.
But no, you have to, you know he's the pastor, so you got to make his plate, right?
Yes. Well, we have to take care of our men now. I'm good for that one.
I'm with it. Although I think I'm laughing so hard sometimes that I'm trying not to spill the plate in his lap. I'm like, are you serious right now? But I knew I couldn't let you get away without saying something to Pastor Todd Yuri, because I know he wants this food like right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I got it.
Oh my gosh. Love you. And Chapearl, how can we get in touch with you at Celebrations by Us?
Celebrations by Us, 708-526-4546, or reach us at celebrationsbyus.org. Thank you so much, Santita.
Of course, everybody. What's happening in Texas before we even pivot to what a third indictment could mean for Donald Trump? I want to stay right here for a hot second. Aaron Connolly, brilliant political strategist, attorney Aaron Connolly, covenant strategies. Yes, I think this is a breaking of a covenant, a spiritual one at the very least. And Reverend Dr. Todd Yuri, Esquire. I heard President Joe Biden say in passing, and you've heard me talk about this. He said it in passing in an interview several weeks ago now. We need our farm workers. These migrants are being lured to the United States. They're being pushed out because a lot of American policies pushed by corporations are pushing people away from their lands. And they've got resources that our corporations want. Let's just put it right where it is. A lot of these people are not immigrating as much as they are running away from conditions that are quite dire. President Biden said, look, we need our farm workers. We need them. So we get them here so they can work for next to nothing. Now, Black people worked for nothing. We were unpaid. It wasn't for free. Take that out of your mouth. Enslaved Black people were not paid for the work that we did, and we built the country. The country was built by Black people. Immigrants came in and built on top of it. They further built the country, but the foundation and really the actual structure of the culture, of the culture and the country was built by Black folks. First for no pay, and then for little to no pay. And we haven't learned any lessons from this. So now we have emails that have come through to CNN, and now they're with the broader corporate media, from the Texas Department of Public Safety that details a whistleblower, a trooper medic, who is concerned, and he expressed his concerns, he or she can express their concerns to a supervisor, concerned about the inhumane treatment of migrants along the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. Now, in that area, they are under heat advisories, heat alerts, triple-digit temperatures. 4 migrants, including an infant, drowned in the Rio Grande River over a 3-day period. That's got to be traumatizing for these people. A 4-year-old girl passed out in 100-degree heat. A man with a significant laceration, a cut on his leg, suffered when he tried to rescue his child from razor wire placed on a deterrence buoy in the Rio Grande. A 15-year-old boy with a broken leg suffered when he tried to cross a more dangerous part of the river, and on and on and on it goes. So they were given orders. These medics were given orders to push people back into the river, to go back to Mexico, and they were also ordered not to give them water. You can live without food for a while. Water, you dehydrate, you're dead quickly. I want us to talk about that this morning before we talk about anything else. Aaron Connolly and Pastor Yuri. Attorney Aaron Connolly, why don't you speak to this?
Well,
a 19-year-old woman
for...
trapped in the wire who was having a miscarriage. Right. I can't imagine watching a 19-year-old woman who is trapped in wire. She's having a miscarriage and you do nothing to help her? Who does that?
Well, especially a portion of our government that has a duty of care to protect these people, right?
Well, no, what is duty of care?
We have a legal right to asylum in the United States of America. These people are fleeing not only poverty, but dangerous living conditions where they have no other option. And the fact that we are creating reckless traps to purposely harm women, children, and then not rendering aid for a nation that likes to talk about its Christian value is absolutely abhorrent. And the codified cruelty we see with these official orders saying not to provide water during wet bulb temperatures where people are already at risk of death from massive heat waves. Not only that, but they're not allowed to rescue people when they jump on a barbed wire death trap in the middle of one of the most dangerous river crossings. It seems that the cruelty of this is absolutely the point, and the fact that there are folks who are not condemning this order from the Border Patrol. Is troubling on so many levels, right? So I think we need to have this conversation. It's a difficult one to have. And as you mentioned, Santita, we are asking these folks to come. We are providing jobs. The reality is we do need farm workers, but there is a huge industry focused on recruiting these folks for this very skilled and temporary labor. And we do not provide an immigration system that facilitates it or tracks it in a way that's responsible or fair. And now what we're asking them to do is to put their lives in danger in a way that is
beyond what we should expect from our government, right? What we see in Texas is a pattern of this behavior. I want to note also that in the laws in Texas do not require folks to provide water breaks for even workers, right? So with climate change, with these conditions where the crossing will be more volatile, and what we're doing in Texas is absolutely terrible. And I think we need our faith community, as we have seen over and over again, stand up and say, this is not what our nation stands for. And folks that are speaking out against this differentiate.
Sadly, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to say this. This is what we stand for. The church needs to stand up and say, no more. See, because we were farm workers too. Black people were. And we didn't get water breaks. And as they examined the bones, the remains of people who were enslaved, they see that literally many of us were worked to death. This ain't new. I didn't say this isn't new. This ain't new. This is a continuation, Aaron, because we did not learn from slavery. Now, these people are barely paid. Americans who were African Americans who were enslaved, and we were not even citizens then. We were here for 2.5 centuries before we had a civil war and have our Constitution amended to give us our citizenship, because they wanted to send us to a place that they created in Africa called Liberia. And don't act like this has not happened before. I'm sorry, Aaron, I just had to say that, because I'm like, if we don't stay connected to history, Aaron, we miss all of this. All of it. This is who we are.
I agree. And what we continue to do is, as you said, not take a true look at the cycles that we repeat in many different ways. When we look at providing workers' rights and then the eventual pushback against those gains in a way that we've never seen before. I think we have to learn those lessons of history, as you said, but we're not improving upon those systems. That's the great tragedy. We see these pieces repeat in different ways with different people in charge. And to your point, Santita, many times the divisions are made clearer, because the more we fight each other, the less effective we are, right, against the real enemies. And I think that's usually the lesson, and I think that's the lesson that we saw over the weekend with, celebrating your father's historic coalition and the expansion of voting rights and activating the voters of this country in a way that had never happened before. And I think if we continue to focus on that, we always have hope.
Absolutely. And Nicole Barrett writes in, when you think about it, slavery should have been unimaginable. It is happening all over again with brown people. Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, you're a pastor, you're a lawyer, you engage in public policy. I mean, how do you, just help me with this, how does a 19-year-old woman, barely a woman, she's a girl, she's pregnant, she's having a miscarriage, she's caught in the wires, how does no one rescue her? How do you push kids and anybody, I don't care what your age is, how do you push them back into the salty river in the midst of this heat? How are you ordered? Who comes up with an order not to give people water? I'm here. I'm here for it. I want to hear what you got to tell me. Perhaps you understand something. I'm missing something here.
Well, good morning, Santita. So when we look at the actions that are horrific on their face, you have a few things that are in play here. Number one, immigration is the sole purview of the federal government, not the state government. So you already have a violation of the law in the governor giving an order in a space that he has no jurisdiction. That's number one. Number two, because these are potential asylees, and I say that intentionally because asylum law says that you must file for asylum once you get inside the country where you are seeking safe haven. So they would have to be what we call physically present. So my law clinic experience in law school was actually immigration law. So when we look at this space, you have a governor who's operating outside of his legal authority, intentionally keeping potential asylees in a space where they cannot effectively apply for asylum because they can't get physically present. And so you're seeing this game again. First, it's putting immigrants on buses and sending them to Democratic Party-led cities across the country to kind of prove this point, using people's suffering as a political tool to prove a point that does not address the real issue. And I think ultimately what we have is a violation of international covenants and declarations of human rights that also come into play. And so here you have now, and let's add to it, you have a 19-year-old expectant young girl in the middle of a need for a medical procedure and not getting care at the border of a state that is already conflicted. And even as we're having these ongoing fights about state laws and women's reproductive health, would be a little convoluted about what the care would look like under state law if she were able to get care at all. It becomes a mushrooming abyss of madness with no clear remedy in sight. I would suggest that the president needs to, by authority, issue a mandate, ask for a writ to cease and desist on this directive because, first of all, the governor is violating the law, the federal law, and second of all, it puts the U.S. in potential violation of international law in terms of there being no intervention for what we know are outrageous and illegal acts. So this whole thing ought to just call this to, and at the basic level, here's where it comes down to. At the foundational level of this being an affront to the dignity and the humanity of people who find themselves in a position of just trying to do better for their own personal well-being and their livelihood. To allow this to happen and to go unchallenged at the core of the masses of the people, forget the political, the folks in political power, the people, to your point, should be outraged because the text actually says, be kind to the stranger within your gates because once upon a time that was you. That's in the book. The immigration policy is covered by scripture. And because we have not found this reconciliation between what's in the law of human framing, but also what every decent, dignified world religion, pick your path, but being sensitive to the needs of other people is the first expression of dignified faith. This is an undignified action that is carrying with it the forced, undignified faith of the masses, and nobody's saying anything. And that is the tragedy on top of the tragedy of what we're seeing before our very eyes.
Do you know how this makes us look before the world, Pastor Geary and Attorney Aaron Connolly? See, so when we talk about taking different leaders to the ICC, to the International Court, to The Hague, and all of this, we are laughed at by 95% of the world because they see the inconsistency. Where is your humanity? How do you issue an order not to give someone water? That's evil. It's wicked. It's just evil. It's wicked. It's not mean. It's not just wrong. There's something spiritually off about you. It's ungodly. How do you watch a girl twist in some wire while she's miscarrying? I can't even imagine, Aaron. I mean, the more details I read about this, the more infuriated I became. I mean, I know how I get when I need a cup of water. I am like, look, y'all, I can't even think straight. I gotta get some water. Who does this? I got 1 minute for you, Aaron. Who does what? We do this. I mean, and we need to stop averting our gaze. This is not who we are. Yeah, it is who we are. It is who we are. And you got a man who's in a wheelchair, who has physical challenges, who has health challenges because he cannot walk. Who's doing this? It's cruel, Aaron.
And to your point and to Reverend Urie's point, this is a pattern of absolute terrible policies by Governor Abbott. And to Reverend Urie's very accurate assessment, illegal, right? He has been engaging in essentially trafficking of these asylum seekers. And, you know, that was the beginning of this policy. Clearly, he wants to provoke some sort of response, and I think the federal government does have some options to stop these type of policies that are clearly have already literally caused the deaths of these migrants crossing the border here into the United States. So there's a few things at play here for Governor Abbott, and I hope he has some accountability for this type of policy, not only in the court of public opinion, but with the Justice Department.
Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, could we be taken to the UN, the ICC, any international court over this?
Well, that would be something I would look at, because foreign nationals, if their home governments who have access and standing before the World Court, they could raise a complaint of a violation of international treaty. The question becomes, if the judgment were to be in their favor, would the United States be bound to enforce it? And that's where we've always gotten on this slippery slope that, yeah, we'll be a part of it, but we're not going to be bound by it. So we get to say, yeah, but no.
Yeah, you know we'd ignore it. So please, please. Pastor Urey, just stay right here. And of course, Attorney Aaron Connolly, 220,000 teachers could be eliminated from classrooms. Now, we already have a 300,000 person shortfall in the education system. That was a story that we reported to you already. Teacher, school staff vacancies at the beginning of this school year, of the 22-23 school year. So now the Republicans want to cut 220,000 more jobs. Now, we're giving money to Ukraine hand over fist. The Pentagon gets money they don't even ask for. And there's no education for the children. We're not going to pay staff workers. We're not going to pay teachers' assistants. We're not going to pay the paraprofessionals. We're not going to pay teachers. That's where the cuts come from. Call me at 773-763-9278. Everybody like and share this show. Like and share. I mean, this is behind a meeting I had with the governor of KwaZulu-Natal. She's the first woman to have this position in South Africa. And that's a state in South Africa. They have 200 doctors who they cannot pay. So they're sitting at home. They're among the most trained people in the world. They're sitting at home because they can't even afford to take the bus. What is going on, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278. And you need to be concerned, because guess what? It could happen here. Back in just a minute on the Santita Jackson Show. Okay, y'all, keep on talking. It's just got me on a soapbox. I'm mad this morning, in a good way.
I couldn't tell.
Oh, no. I mean, it's, I'm not thinking about this, man. You know what it is? I think about these people. I look at my brother, Jonathan Jackson, Congressman Jackson. If I may get personal for a minute, Jonathan is the darkest one of us. So people would ignore him. They wouldn't treat him right. My parents would not let people come back into our home when they saw that they would favor Jesse and I, because it was just Johnny, Jesse, and I for the first 7 years. Okay. And I've seen how people have dismissed him for one reason or another, basically that one, because we have color issues. But I also know my parents have been poor. My father wasn't always Jesse Jackson. My father was, I was born when he was a student. Okay. My parents didn't even have a home the night I was born. We lived with the Halseys. And Mrs. Halsey asked my mother, well, if you're going to stay with
Attorney
me.
Hoffer's on, but she's on mute.
Okay. Can I have you? You can, if it's a girl, can I help you? Can I name her? Can I help you with that? And my mother said, sure. So my name is essentially rent money. And my brother was almost put out of a big hospital here. He was the first Black child born in the hospital here because my parents had no more money. And he had more illness than money. Had it not been for Dr. King coming in the next morning, the morning they were going to put him out, my brother would be dead. See, I know what it's like. That's part of my family history. For people to be ignored and for people to be flushed down a toilet. So to think of a 19-year-old, my mother was 19 when she had me. When I think of a woman getting stuck in a fence and you will not help her, God help you. Something inside of you is rotten, something is missing, and it's called God. And people ought to be upset about it. There's something wrong with us when we allow this. Something is wrong with us. And it needs to be called out. Dr. King tried to call that with you. Reverend Jackson tried to call that with you. Everybody keeps trying to tell you where you are in spiritual error and you don't listen. And it's not right. You need to stop it. And so now I know. So now I've said it. Now you're gonna fire some more teachers. Are you serious? No, this is crazy.
Morning.
Yes, come on in. Yeah, because I'm hot this morning.
How are you doing?
Oh, honey, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Okay, and this is Dr. Marnie Reeves. Who do I have on? Everybody come off mute so I can find out who's here. I'm here.
Good morning, Santita.
Okay, who do I have here?
Good morning, Santita.
Oh, CK?
Good morning, Santita.
Yeah, honey. CK
How are
hears
you?
me hot this morning.
Right. I'm here. It's good. It's good to be hot.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Malvo. Good morning.
You all keep talking because I'm looking for something. You know, I'm producing and working. Oh boy.
All your guests are on.
Okay.
Good morning, CK. How are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm great. Thank you. Morning, Dr. Malvo.
Morning, CK. Are you back in Chicago? Or are you still in Atlanta?
No, I had a funeral to go to yesterday in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So I went from Philadelphia, came back into DC.
Okay.
You know what? I need to call Ethel. I'm going to call her. So
absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to call her.
Yep.
I'm going to call
her.
For
many reasons.
Yeah, I just, you know, I was talking to someone. I was talking to a line sister actually, and I need to call her. So, okay. So everybody is okay. So who do I have? I have Dr. Malvo. I have C.K. Hoffler. I have Reverend Attorney. Reverend Todd Geary Esquire. We have Attorney C.K. Hoffler, but we also have a teacher. And I would love for you all to get closer, Dr. Malvo. Dr. Marnie Reeves has been one of our most stalwart supporters, and she does something that I know you would absolutely love. I wish I'd known all of this when she was. I wish I'd known all of this when we were in New York. I mean, years ago. But she teaches in the New York public school system and in CUNY. So she's a professor at CUNY, and she is a teacher and a union leader in the New York public schools. So she gets our kids through school, through grammar school and high school, and then gets them into college and gets them through that. And she really understands how education works on the ground. And so I really want to connect the two of you because she needs to be working more closely at that level where you are in Push Excel. We can't have someone with this kind of operational experience and excellence be this close to us, and we don't know her, right?
Please connect us.
1 minute.
Please connect us, and she and I can talk. Hi, Marnie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Dr. Melville?
I'm wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
I look forward to talking to you.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
You like her. She's as nutty as you. So that's a good thing.
Well, that's a blessing.
No, she's great.
That's right.
Nuts. Oh my God.
30 seconds.
With me this morning. Nuts. All right, so let's get right to it. Pastor Yuri, mysteriously or mysteriously.
Good morning, Pastor Yuri, Reverend Doctor.
Good morning. I'm staying okay. When you
10 seconds.
Ducky. That's a good one.
And looking for Chappelle.
Stand by.
Chappelle's making some food. Stand by. He is.
Oh, boy.
You can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I agree.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. People calling it disgraceful. The GOP is advancing a bill that could remove 220,000 teachers from classrooms. This, in light of the 300,000 teacher school staff shortfall that we had at the beginning of the year. What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Call me at 773-763-9278. I'm Santita Jackson. This is the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Santita Jackson and Friends. Everybody, Carl, Dave, Kenneth, Bernard, TJ. Yes, TJ, although you're trolling us, I want you to like and share the show. But not like the show, but share it. I'm good with it either way. Call me at 773-763-9278. And of course, please hop on over to YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can get to the rest of the show. Former President Donald Trump said he's been informed by special counsel Jack Smith that he's a target of the criminal investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election leading up to the Capitol riot on January 6th, 2021. A target letter from federal prosecutors to the former president makes clear they are focused on his actions in their probe. Tropical Storm Calvin. A state of emergency has been declared for more than 1 million people in Hawaii as Tropical Storm Calvin threatens to deliver strong winds and torrential rain to the Big Island. It has been more than 2.5 years since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the U.S. intelligence community has yet to reach a conclusion about where the virus originated. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is at the center of this theory that COVID-19 established from that lab in late 2019, triggering this global crisis. This week, the Biden administration suspended funding for the Wuhan research lab following a months-long review that revealed some safety concerns. A bus carrying dozens of migrants from Texas arrived in Los Angeles Tuesday evening, the fourth such time to arrive in the city in recent weeks, according to a nonprofit. This comes as Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have sent thousands of migrants to Democratic-led cities and states in protest of the Biden administration's immigration and border security efforts. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 79 degrees. It will be mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 89 degrees. It will be rainy. Major League Baseball, the Twins 10, the Mariners 3, the Cubs 17, the Nationals 3, the Mets 11, the White Sox 10. Tomorrow night, the Sky will be playing the Mercury. But the Dream, well, they bested the Lynx last night, 82-73, and those are some of the headlines. You know, we've been looking for economic freedom as we had this financial literacy seminar. Let me give you a special thank you, Dr. Julianne Malvo for participating with us for the full 2 hours. She was absolutely magnificent, really helping us to understand economics. I wish I'd taken economics from you, because economics in college made my eyes roll to the back of my head, but that's okay. Not my space. But I want to thank you, Melissa Rizzi, for pulling this together. Joan Esposito, this was your idea. And Matt Cummings and Bill and Devin, thank you for making it happen. WCPT, thank you for giving us the platform. And thank you, Rainbow Push, for opening the door. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. People had a lot of questions, and we're going to continue these seminars because people still had a lot of questions. I got about 10 more questions when I was walking out the door, Dr. Malvo, because people have a lot of questions about their money. And fortunately, you all created an atmosphere so that people felt comfortable asking questions that people sometimes feel are embarrassing. So good for you, everybody. The Rainbow Push International Conference wraps up today. Yesterday, we were treated to the brilliant, the anointed Reverend Dr. Freddie Haynes, the incoming president of Rainbow Push. And boy, oh boy, what a time we have had. Thank you, Vice President Kamala Harris, and so many of you for coming out and making this successful. Secretary Sorrell, Marsha Fudge, and so many others. Blessings to you all, everybody. If you are a first-time home buyer, if that means if you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender, because you just might be able to buy a home. That's right. Remember, first-time home buyers made up just 26% of the market last year, down from 34% the year before, and down from numbers that were significantly higher in previous years. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are understandably worried because the cornerstone of an American's wealth is home ownership. They want to and they need to turn these numbers around. So first-time home buyers, those people who have not owned a home in the past 3 years, you now have an opportunity to take advantage of substantially lower rates. If you're in the Chicago area and your total household income is below $105,700, and you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, you might have owned one 4 years ago, but in the past 3 years, if you have not owned a home, this program just might work for you. So you need to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID. Go online and watch them if you can. Go and look at this program at 56david.com. But what I really, really want you to do is call them. Tell them your housing issues. Tell them your home ownership issues. Talk to them. They will help you. You give them the information, then they'll come back to you with a plan. And so everybody call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Remember, homeowners beget more homeowners. So start your generational wealth today and call Team Hochberg to find out about home ownership, particularly at this time. What's going on, everybody? The GOP is advancing a bill that could remove 220,000 teachers from the classrooms. Yes, you heard it right, 220,000 teachers. This legislation would slash Title I grants to local educational agencies that serve children from low-income families by nearly $15 billion. And we're seeing slashes to the federal work-study program, the federal supplemental educational opportunity grant program, the Promised Neighborhoods program, child care access. The bill would inflict major cuts to labor, health, and medical research programs and agencies. It just does not stop. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, legal Q&A with C.K. I just wish the people could sue. We've got Attorney Mark Fancher with us now. We have got Dr. Julianne Malvo. We've got Attorney Aaron Connolly. We've got Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary. But we also have Marnie Reeves, Dr. Marnie Reeves. She is one of our morning stars, New York City Public Schools and City University educator. She's a professor on the college side and a teacher and union leader on the public school side. She's a UFT chapter leader and New York State NEA delegate. In fact, I think we're catching her at the convention. CK, I don't know. I mean, what else? I don't know what to say. I mean, 220,000. You really wanted to talk about this. Why?
Well, Santita, I want to talk about it because this is a travesty. When we are impacting intentionally and directly the education of the vast majority of our children in this way, by impacting the teachers, by cutting teachers, then we are literally affecting the future of this country in many, many ways. And so when I think of legal challenges, in this segment, we tend to talk about legal challenges where there's an intersection between law and politics. I think that this is a red flag. There's so many things that are happening that we've seen the Republican or conservative caucuses introduce in our Congress, but this is one that cuts to the heart of our nation because it is affecting our children in a very significant way. Needless to say, the most impacted communities will be Black and brown children, or disadvantaged children. Because not just Black and brown, I think in our Native American communities too, communities that are already suffering, and there's already great disparity in the educational platforms for these communities. It's going to be even worse. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I think it was a perfect segue to what we've done over the past few days at the Rainbow Push Convention, which I concur with you, Santita. Outstanding, simply outstanding on all levels. And I just thought we need to highlight this. We need to fight this. When we talk about litigation, I think there will be litigation. I know there will be litigation surrounding if this bill is passed, then there's going to have to be litigation to fight it. But before it is passed, before it becomes law, and I don't think it will become law, but before we even get to that point, I think that we have to recognize the crisis in our education systems and be prepared to position ourselves so that this doesn't happen. We already have states like Florida that are banning books, banning basically education, American history, and education about Black history, which is American history. So we already have this censorship of our books. We have classes in schools in Atlanta, for example, Atlanta metropolitan area. There's some public schools that don't have books. Teachers are teaching from Xerox copies of sheets that they are making. So we already have a crisis on so many levels, but I'd love to hear from Dr. Marnie Reeves because she's there every day, New York State, affected with the kids and with our communities. And I'd love to hear her perspective on this to set the table from that vantage point before we go into the legal discussion. So, one of the interesting things, thanks, CK, about this is that the first time we heard anything like this was back in the 1950s when the Brown versus Board of Education mandate came down. And what happened was they literally got rid of over 100,000 principals and teachers, right, between the 1950s and 1970s. We're at a critical point in education right now where we have a shortage of teachers. We have some states where in our classrooms, teachers are teaching 50 students, 40 students. We have across the country several school districts that have gone out on strike because of working conditions, because they don't have the supplies that they need, and because they're not being paid a living wage in order to be in the states or the cities where they teach. So to see something like this coming down the pike and the possibility of it even being passed and made into law becomes problematic. And the students who would be affected the most are the Black and brown students, students with disabilities, because this bill affects Title I funding. And Title I funding goes to our most needy students. Students who have been left behind, students who are from very low-income communities where supplies are lacking, and just to see that they would put a bill like this in place rather than work on the issues that currently exist in our schools is problematic. One of the major issues that we're seeing across the nation are school shootings. We had over 377 school shootings within this last year. Okay, we don't hear anything about them curtailing these gun laws, making it safer for schools. But what they're doing now is attacking education as a whole. as you mentioned, in Florida, CK, with the banning of books, because we did a rally in Florida over a week ago because of the decisions that are being brought down by DeSantis and his cronies, where they're literally attacking the foundation of education. They're banning books that they don't want students to read. And it's very interesting because in Iowa, when they tried to ban the Bible, everybody showed right back up, to vote and re-vote. And it was very simple. One person complained and said that there were some derogatory statements written in the Bible, and then they banned the Bible. And within several weeks, they decided, oh no, we made a mistake. So let's all go back and really look at the Bible and have people come and truly testify. And the ban was rescinded. So, it's a lot of this is really nonsense lawmaking for the sake of lawmaking, but it is definitely an attack on the foundation of education. And we're going to see, public education, for the most part, big business would rather have charter schools.
Yes.
And because big business would rather have charter schools, and a lot of our parents don't educate themselves enough on what charter school funding and what charter school existence does to the public school system, we're going to have a fight on our hands. Charter schools don't allow for the same open-mindedness as public schools. They don't allow for vocational training as public schools do. They don't allow for students to actually have an opportunity to make mistakes and correct those mistakes in a meaningful way. And what I mean by that is if a student misbehaves and goes against whatever rules are set forth in the charter, they dismiss them from the school. It's not the same as a student possibly getting suspended and then being brought back to the school. They kick them out. So when we're talking about disseminating completely public education, we're really saying we're lifting up charter education, which does not allow for every student to be educated equally or in a meaningful way.
CK, we have quite the array of people who are with us today. We've had Reverend Dr. Yeary. We want to hear from him again. Of course, we want to hear from Attorney Erin Connolly. We've got Dr. Malveaux and Attorney Mark Fancher. CK, I think we need to hear from, you are the board chair of Rainbow Push. And she is the co-chair of Push Excel. Wow, CK. Oh.
Well, I'd love to hear from Dr. Julianne Malveaux. Why? Because she is, to me, the strongest voice out there as an economist, as an educator, and who can speak to these issues on a global level and bring it back. I love the way she expresses herself because she brings it back to reality. Because a lot of times economists speak in a way that I don't really halfway understand what they're saying. And I have sort of maybe average intelligence. But I just love how Dr. Malveaux brings it home to our community. So I thank you for that. I've been meaning to tell you that for a long time. So, and Dr. Malveaux, maybe we could do it in this order because I know time is short, followed by Dr. Reverend, he has so many titles, which means he's exceptionally talented. Dr. Reverend Todd Yeary, Erin Connolly, the magnificent Erin Connolly. She is our sister from a different mother, Santita. We know this political strategist, lawyer extraordinaire. And then we round it out with the incomparable Mark Fancher because he's just phenomenal and we love his perspective.
Oh, man.
So let's do it in that order.
Absolutely. And just so that you know, everybody, we've got about 3.5 minutes left in this segment. So, we'll, give that to you, Dr. Malveaux. And then when we get to the other side, we'll get all the other guests in because, we need to hear your perspectives. Dr. Malveaux.
Yeah, I'll call her.
Okay. And we have a caller too. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get that in too. All right.
Thanks, Santita, and thanks everyone for this really important topic because we're ignoring what's happening in education, especially K-12 education. Of course, my wheelhouse is more likely higher education, but it all flows together. And what we really see is we talk a lot about voter suppression. What we're dealing with here is knowledge suppression. We're looking at ways that people cannot learn. We're making it impossible for people to learn. To take so many teachers out of the classroom, or even to propose it. To propose it is, what kind of minds do these people have? What are they thinking? We may want to suppress knowledge. 44 states have passed 44 states have introduced laws that ban the teaching of race, including southern states where we know the racial history is rich and fraught. Nobody wants little white children to feel badly about who they are. But we want them to do is to know who they are and know what our history is, so that we don't get up with the ignorance of a DeSantis, of these people who want to pass this legislation. Taking thousands of teachers out of the schools, especially doesn't just hit black and brown children. You know what I'm most concerned about these days? It's special education young people. Young people need special education because they need double the teachers and they're giving them half of them. And that really is extremely frightening. What's also frightening about this is the anti-intellectual basis of all this legislation. What they're saying is, we really want dumb Americans. We don't want people to know anything. We want people to know as little as possible. And in knowing as little as possible, we're able to get the kind of laws we're seeing, laws that attack voting rights, laws that attack LGBTQIA people, and we can just go down the list. This is a moment for resistance, and this has been a very rich week with Rainbow Push, our convention, so wherever you sit, you've heard the message. Whether you've heard it in Reverend Jackson, you can't shout anymore, but he shouts with his presence. We hear it with Reverend Freddie Haynes, who also is talking about resistance. And I think, TK, every speaker who's taken a mic has talked about the resistance that has to happen. But the basis of all of this is education. If we don't have an educated population, this allows these people, these crazy people, and I won't say Republicans, because it's not Republicans. All Republicans are not there. It is predatory capitalists who want to extract surplus value, especially from the education system. The charter school movement is really a movement about making money. It's not a movement about education. It's a movement about money. We have to be very, very clear about that as well. So this is a moment. It's a moment, people. As Reverend Jackson passes the baton, it is a moment for us to organize ourselves and say no more, especially in our schools. Stop using our schools as a laboratory for your nonsense, because that's what's being done. They're using it as a lab. Think post-Katrina. When Katrina hit New Orleans, the next thing that happened is that they took over the New Orleans public school system. Half of the black teachers lost their jobs. Half of the black teachers lost their jobs. And we went from there to a charter-like system that marginalized thousands of young people. Here we go again. And we can't allow this to happen. So I am hopeful that the legal minds like TK are prepared to take this to the courts. I hope that there are those who will take the Supreme Court, the last three of whom perjured themselves, to charge them with perjury because they lied. It's time for us to empower our teachers are spending their own money. When someone says that people are copying pages, guess whose money they're using? Their own. So our teachers already underpaid rather, are spending their money to get young people educated. We have to do better, folks. We just have to do better.
Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Call us at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Now, at the beginning of the year, we had a 300,000 teacher school staff shortfall. But now, the GOP and like-minded Democrats, corporatists want to cut 220,000 more. How is that supposed to work? The population is expanding, but the education system is contracting. Huh? Oh boy. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Woo, you all keep talking. Remember, we are on the air. Mark Fancher, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Good morning.
Oh, I know you're going to give us some historical nuggets. I love it. I love it. I'm so glad to hear you all today. But you all talk amongst yourselves. I'm looking for something here. Oh, please.
GK, is there a case against the perjurers?
I don't know of a case against the perjurers because I think, in the past, like Clarence Thomas perjured himself, all over the place. But, and is still perjuring himself. But I think that there is no case, but there has to be something in terms of that accountability. And a group a long time ago, and I think it was a connection with Clarence Thomas, to be frank, a group is investigating what legal cause of action would citizens or groups or organizations have against Supreme Court justices or people who perjured themselves in the hearings and subsequently became U.S. Supreme Court justices. And I think that there were very limited actions because of some of the protections that are incorporated in the system, because there are a lot of people who appear before the before the Senate who perjured themselves for various issues, and some of them are held in contempt because that would be a process. You hold them in contempt. But when they are already sitting on the U.S. Supreme
New caller.
The legal question is, could they be held in contempt? Is it too late? All that kind of stuff.
Well, there need to be consequences because they swore. When we perjure ourselves, we get charged.
Absolutely. So I would like to. That's an interesting legal question. I remember a long time ago it was discussed. I don't know, Mark or Aaron or Todd. Do you all have any thoughts on that? And I think it's a very interesting legal question. I'm just not sure the traction that it could get, or if there's a foundation.
Oh, please don't
Well,
answer.
first thing that comes to mind is that in the confirmation process, if there's perjury in sworn testimony before a congressional body, there is contempt of the body, but that has to be initiated by that body's process. The Congress, the Senate in this case, would have to do so. The other option is if there are found to be violations after the confirmation, then there's always the impeachment process, which is a whole different thing. And that comes down to numbers that allow for some level of accountability. And I think there's not a big appetite for that because impeachment is becoming increasingly used as a political ploy and tool, not a lever of accountability. So I don't have a
1 minute
helpful answer in this regard. The only process that I can think of is impeachment.
There's only been one Supreme Court justice, I think one or maybe two, impeached in our entire history. Is that right?
That's right.
That's a long shot strategy.
People have to remember an impeachment is an indictment. It's not a conviction. It starts an investigative process. It starts, you move toward a trial. So you can be impeached.
30 seconds.
I mean, Donald Trump's been impeached over and over and over again. It's made no difference. And there are a whole lot of folks who should have been impeached but removed. Didn't make a difference there either. Yeah, I said it. Add more to it before I take anything back. It's ridiculous. So, CK, you've got Mark Fancher, Reverend Yeary, you've got Attorney Aaron Connolly. All right.
Okay.
Stand by.
So, Reverend Yeary, you're going to go next in that order. Then Aaron, and then
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
More and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody, disgraceful, that's what it's been called. The GOP, and I would say just corporatists of both parties. GOP will advance, but corporatists of both parties will allow a bill that could remove 220,000 teachers from the classroom. CK, legal Q&A with CK. CK, we already had a shortfall of 300,000 teachers and staff at the beginning of the year.
I know. This is a crisis. This is a crisis.
Gosh.
And I think we have to look at it as a crisis. And we've got such a talented panel. We're now going to hear from Dr. Todd Eury, Reverend Dr. Lawyer Todd Eury. out of Baltimore, Maryland, part of our Rainbow Push family as well. We'd love to hear from you. And then we'd love to hear from Attorney Aaron Connolly. And then we're going to round it out with comments from Attorney Mark Fancher.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair, and to my colleagues. There are a couple of things that kind of hit me. First of all, there's the insult of even proposing such legislation. It's like we've known that the math was bad in Congress. It's really bad now. So if you're 300 short, instead of trying to figure out how you close that gap, you just widen the gap because you want to give the impression that you are being fiscally responsible. That's the political message that they're trying to send to the top line corporate interests, right? Where are you spending public dollars and who's going to benefit from it? But the long-term effects, not just in terms of the immediate effects of who's in the classroom, but remember, it is the practical experiences of teachers that leads to the development of future administrators of the education policies of the several states. So what does the future of the administration look like? Where do we get what we would call the diversity of those who are going to be in principalships or superintendencies across the country if you're going to continually pull back from the development of teachers in communities that are already under-resourced and disaffected? And this is kind of the personal experience. My grandfather taught math. After Brown v. Board, he ended up being the first principal of a formerly all-white high school in Clarksville, Tennessee. Spent 1 year in that space because there was already this resistance to the notion of having black educators in leadership, and he was challenged and terminated after his first year in the principalship and actually had to take his case all the way to federal court to be able to get his job back. And so I carry around that case with me as the reminder that this fight that we're in is a litigation legislation moment. While it's a long shot that this is going to go anywhere, but this is really a whistle. This is a hint, a nudge, nudge, wink, wink to say this is the next move in terms of our policy intentions, so that when we look at who's going to get elected in this next round, all the way up from local government LEAs, who's sitting on school boards, to all the way up, who's going to sit in the executive chair in D.C. This is the trend. This is not a right now moment. This is a hint of what's coming. And if we don't resist it now in real time, then we will look up and there will be a waterfall of these types of cases, these types of bills being passed in state houses and in Washington over and over and over again. Now's the time to shut this thing down and to shut it down with force, so that this party and any other that might want to come after it knows that we will not go back to days where state books had laws against even the thought of educating black and brown children because the law would not allow it. And all you got to do is look at Pauli Murray's book on state laws on race and color to be able to get a sense of what that trend has been over time, not just in terms of legislation, but in terms of even state constitutions that had prohibitions on who could benefit from the public coffers to get the skills necessary to remain competitive and to make up this wealth gap that is getting wider every single day. We've got to fight, and we got to fight right now.
CK, we've got Aaron Connolly and Mark Fancher.
Well, Aaron Connolly, what say you?
Well, thank you for this conversation, and what ultimately I'm hearing from the experts, and we've heard this for decades now, right? We see attacks on areas that help folks develop a way of thinking, and education is under a full attack. And it's going to disproportionately. I'm so glad kids with disabilities were mentioned, because any parent who has a child with any type of disability understands that public schools are the only place where you are able to get consistent and legal representation for the best interest of your child, right? Period. Charter schools are operating by different sets of rules. And if we let this system in our country deteriorate where we don't have the proper support staff, we've seen this movie before. We're talking about New Orleans. We're talking about Paul Vallis, who thankfully is not the mayor of Chicago, and Brandon Johnson is. right? An educator who gets it, that when we cut these key services and staff, that means we're dismantling part of our community system that empowers folks to not only get educated, but get in oftentimes medical care for these extreme types of learning disabilities. And what that does when you cut that, it doesn't allow these children to develop to their highest potential, right? And we have to empower that. Not only that, if we're cutting teachers and paraprofessionals and part-time staff, we are taking money, resources, and stability out of our local communities, out of our families. These positions are primarily held by women of color, by first-generation Americans who want to work close to their children at their school or in the school system. And it removes that opportunity for growth for many of these families. And again, we've seen the impact of these cuts before. And we need our organizations to stand up and make this the priority for our families to understand what is at stake here, and to stand up for their teachers, their communities, their administrators, and the students that need these services. So the families need to understand what's at stake. I think it's absolutely fair to say that parents can be easily misled, especially with some of the rhetoric at the school board meetings throughout the United States right now. But I think we have an opportunity to stand up as responsible parents who understand what's at stake in the system, who have parents and family members who have been union representatives and know what this moment means for teachers, what it means for actors, what it means for UPS workers, and stand in solidarity to make sure that these jobs and this community is strengthened and not weakened.
Wow. Thank you so much, Erin. I want to say drop the mic. We just dropped the mic.
Absolutely.
And I want to remind people, because I have personal experience from this, that when we talk about children with disabilities, there are many types of disabilities that make learning very challenging for kids. There are various types of ADHD, ADD, and other types of disabilities that children have that need special attention. And that is very, very significant. And we see this, there's an uptick of this in Black and Brown communities. So it's something that is not discussed but it's just disability across the board for all children. But we are seeing an uptick in the community. So when we're talking about the impact, if you cut these teachers, if you look at children who already have challenges to learn to traditional learning and have to be given tools to learn successfully, and some of a few of the most successful lawyers that I know had very significant different styles of learning, which would have been considered a disability in today's environment. Back in the day, people didn't know what it was. They were just like, well, just figure it out. But fortunately, there are tools that we can provide for our kids. But if you cut the teachers, if you have these types of cuts, then the children are going to lose out, and it will broaden the gap. And it's hard to catch up. You have to be given these tools early on. So would love to hear, Santita, also from attorney Mark Fancher, just whose perspective is always so enlightening.
And he's from a family of esteemed educators, which is also interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, that's true. And I want to say that, this legislation is really as American as apple pie. Because if you really break it down and look at it, it is completely consistent with the American tradition and what America has always been about. Back when the U.S. Supreme Court decided Dred Scott versus Sanford back in the 1800s, there's a passage in that opinion that says essentially this, that when we look at the Declaration of Independence, we have to take into account that the men who wrote that were learned men, they were scholarly men who had their senses fully in tune, and that they were quite clear on the fact that the United States of America was not intended for African people, that they were condemned to lives of slavery, and that that's the way it is, and that for this black man to come into the court and to say that he wants to take advantage of it is something that is just an idea that comes from another universe, because that's not what America is all about. And public education has and always had, for at least for some decades, has had a black and a brown face. And that is the core of the problem. There are so many in this country who, on the most basic level, have not yet accepted the proposition that black people in particular are even human beings, that they came over to this country as chattel, as property. And the idea of their humanity is something that they've not yet come to terms with. And certainly brown people are people who are just at this point unwanted. They're not even supposed to be in the country as far as many are concerned. So if we're talking about trying to create an educational system that's going to serve these people, then it is at least expendable. When we're looking for money to give tax cuts to the rich, when we're looking for money to ensure that the Pentagon's budget continues to explode, and we're looking for places where we can take money, then certainly take it from public education. Because it really that system serves nobody of any significance or of any worth. In fact, these people, notwithstanding the realities of the racial composition of public education, but these black and brown people shouldn't even be here, and they certainly don't deserve an education. So let's take the money from there. And I think that's at the heart of much of the thinking that goes into the creation of this type of legislation. You know, add to that what was referred to earlier, and that is the corporate interest in it, the idea that there's money to be made off of public education, and that can be done through charter schools. So why waste an opportunity to make more profits when we can, in many ways, commodify education in a way that ensures continuing growth of profits for corporations that choose to run these schools? You have another layer of this, which involves the nationwide white panic that's going on, the fear that's driving many white workers in particular to believe that because they are projected to become a demographic minority within a couple of decades, that they're afraid out of their minds about what is to become of white people, and that their mindset is one of war. That it's not just a matter of indifference toward public education. It must be destroyed because it is an institution that has the potential to further empower populations that at this point are destined to outnumber them anyway in the years to come. So we don't want to in any way increase their effectiveness at whatever it is that they choose to do, because in their heart of hearts, many believe that people of color are hell-bent on revenge against white people. So you have, in addition to that, those who are demagogues who want to exploit this type of panic and exploit this type of fear. And they know that in order to do that effectively, it's not just black and brown people that have to be deprived of an education. White children also have to be deprived of an education, at least an education that is going to tell them the truth. And so when we have these attacks on so-called critical race theory in elementary schools, which does not exist, when we have these attacks on public education generally and on the curriculum, then that is all about controlling the narrative. That's all about making sure that young white children don't learn the truth about America, so that they remain in this state of ignorance, that they remain in this frame of mind of victimhood, that they are the white victims of all of these people of color who are taking over a country which by right belongs to them. And if they know the truth, then they're more likely to see that their interests are more closely aligned with people of color than they are with the interests of these demagogues and with the corporatocracy that controls this country. So the narrative within the school system must be controlled. And there are limits to how much that can be done within a public education system it can be done much more effectively in private academies and in charter schools. So all of this, at least in my mind, seems perfectly natural in this country. It does not surprise me at all because it is in many ways necessary to the perpetuation of what America is all about.
You know, this is showing up in school district after school district. Just yesterday, I learned about a sister, a Black woman, who was named to revive the journalism department at Texas A&M. She's a noted, brilliant woman who also has been a New York Times editor. As soon as she was named, the forces of evil riled up and said, well, but she's done DEI work. And the outcome has been that basically they changed her offer, offered her less money and no tenure, going from a tenured appointment to a 1-year appointment. And the other thing, she basically said, look, I'll stay where I am at the University of Texas. But this is happening to faculty all over the country, not just in higher education, but also in K through 12. As the brother has said earlier, they want to basically to change the narrative, and they don't want people's feelings to be hurt. But there's nothing about feelings and facts are not the same thing. And basically, this is an anti-intellectual, anti-factual movement. And if you can't get people one way by controlling content, you get them another way by cutting the number of teachers in the schools. And again, I think, I'm not sure, maybe it was Aaron who talked about the various kinds of disability. What's happening with our young people who are differently able is that some of them are being fast-tracked out of education altogether, being put out of school, and the charters will not deal with young people who need special education. The other thing becomes a zero tolerance for what is truly youth-based activity. A young person who acts out. Well, if you have a disability, you will likely act out at some point because you're frustrated. But then you get put out of school. Then where do you go and what do you do? This is a return, really, to the days of Plessy, if you will, and it's beyond the days of Plessy because it's hitting our basic right of education. We basically take Brown back, and I'm not a lawyer, so CK will correct me if I'm wrong, but, it takes us back to pre-Brown, and it does any number of other things where Black law students in Oklahoma had to sit outside the classroom, outside the classroom to get their education because of segregation. So we're moving backwards. We're not moving slowly. We're moving at a very rapid pace.
Well, CK, we've got about a little under 5 minutes to get some closing thoughts from everybody here. CK.
Well, absolutely. Well, my closing thoughts, first of all, thank you to Mark, to Attorney Mark Fancher, to Dr. Julianne Marveau, to Attorney Aaron Connolly, to Attorney Dr. Reverend Todd Urey, and to you, Santita, for providing this forum. We have to keep on talking and implementing a strategy. We know, and we're still in the Rainbow Convention, that it's not enough to talk about these issues. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a plan of action, a call to action, which Reverend Jackson and Dr. Haynes are doing. Call to action. So my closing remarks are, we must be aware this is happening. I believe that many are being misled and misguided as to what's happening in our educational system. This is proof positive of the crisis that we are in. If you think things are bad now, and again, because I live in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and I've spoken in schools, spoken to administrators and teachers saying that they don't even have textbooks. We're on that level. We don't even have textbooks to be censored. There aren't textbooks for them to cut out books because they don't have textbooks. But that's just tragic in this day and age because there are countries that we give millions of dollars to every year, every day that have textbooks, just by the way. So that's number one. So I think that we have to understand this is a crisis is the issue. Second thing, we have to be prepared to receive guidance on what we should do to counter this. And thirdly, yes, lawyers need to sharpen their pencil. But fourthly, our activists, our grassroots community, our grassroots organizations need to be supported because this is a fight that we are taking on.
Absolutely.
So donate to these organizations, Rainbow Push and others that are on point on this issue.
Absolutely. Going to quickly get some 30-second remarks 30 seconds, everybody. When you hear my voice, I got to pivot because if we have to get off the air. Attorney Erin Connolly, 30 seconds for you.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for the continued hope and inspiration we saw this week and we'll see today at the Rainbow Push Convention. As CK said, we got to keep up the action part of this, and that's attending your local school board meeting. That's encouraging candidates to run for school board that will focus on these types of values and be an advocate for the whole community. So figure out the best way you can take action today, and that includes prayer.
Get involved. Reverend Dr. Todd Geary.
You got to get involved. That's the bottom line. Get in where you fit in. Start locally. Pay attention to everything that's on the ballot. Start from the bottom up, not the top down. Get as close to ground zero where you are and make sure that your voice is heard. Get your plans, get your networks engaged, and get ready because the fight is on.
The push is on. Mark Fancher.
Well, there is an inevitability to the triumph of those who are oppressed, those who've been locked out. And so I don't think we need to worry about it. God said it. God said we will triumph, and we will. But I do think that we have a role to play. And to the extent that we see communities of white people who are in a war frame of mind when they really don't need to be, those of us who have been locked out really do need to be. But it's not a war that's based on hostility or antagonism. It's a war for justice. It's a war for our salvation. And we have been in this position before. We've been locked out of education opportunities before, and we've nevertheless continued to rise, and we will continue to rise now. But we do have to be committed to that, finding alternative ways, fighting back when we have to fight back, and doing what we need to do to secure what is preordained as our victory.
Dr. Marnie Reeves, final 30 seconds belong to you.
I want everyone to understand that the reality of this proposal is truly to supply the school-to-prison pipeline with our Black and brown students. We realize that education has always been under attack, especially when it comes to educating Black and brown students. So with a proposal like this, a bill like this in place, it is truly to fuel that prison pipeline. So I want everyone to be vigilant. All parents, be at the ready. You need to be at every rally. You need to be at every meeting. You need to be speaking with your representatives. This bill should not pass. It should die on the floor. I want everyone to understand we are all supposed to be heroes of our children, and this is not a bill that encourages learning for anyone.
It's not about learning, CK. It's about burning.
It's not about learning.
Everybody.
I'm dropping the mic twice on Dr. Reeves. I'm dropping the mic twice on what she said. Thank you so much, Dr. Reeves, for saying that. Santita, my goodness.
Still prison pipeline. She said it. She said that's what this is about.
Yep.
Making our children candidates harder. And remember,
and that's predatory capitalism. That's predatory capitalism at its absolute worst.
Look, we wiped out affirmative action for everybody but the military. Okay? Think about that, everybody.
Literally.
Gotta run, get out of here, and then we're gonna have some comments on the other side of the break very quickly. I love you, everybody. God bless you. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Stay here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And Santita Jackson and friends. I love you, love you, love you. Stay. Get closing thoughts from this panel. God bless you, and thank you for your participation with financial literacy in the Rainbow Push Conference. God bless. Okay, everybody, when you hear my voice, it's not time for one more thing. I got to get out because I'm on more than one station, and they will cut me off. So, but Dr. Malvo, you were saying, no. Well, I didn't get you are on the show all the time, and clearly that was a mistake. And I knew no one.
It's all right.
It is all right.
It's all right. I just thought I
if I'm up against the break, you do a show too. If you're up against the break, you're up against the break, and that's what it was.
Yes, ma'am. I agree.
Okay, it's nothing. It's not even. It's indisputable. It's math. You do math, but we still have a very sizable audience here on YouTube and Facebook. What do you want to say?
I wanted to talk about basically what Aaron, not Aaron, the other sister said about the school to prison pipeline.
Oh, that's Dr. Reeves.
Dr. Reeves, the extent to which they're taking us backwards so quickly. They're taking us backwards, and too many of us are not resisting it.
I think that Mark said, go to your school board meetings. You need to be there. Let them look you in the face when they do this nonsense. Take your children to the school board meetings so they understand who's making decisions about the future of their lives. Everyone says they don't have time. If we don't make time, you know what? The devil has time. The devil has unlimited time. And we're the ones who need to make time to basically resist this. And our resistance has to be firm. It has to be intractable. We have to say no more. Because what happened, we've been silent on a switch. Not all of us, and certainly not Rainbow, but too many folks have been silent on the switch. They're not going to do that. They would never do that. They're not going to turn the clock back. So the clock has been turned back. It's all the way back.
But Dr. Malvo, I also want you to think about the fact that when they have school board meetings, it's always late in the evenings when some of these parents are coming from their second or third jobs, right? So they're already tired. So what I would do is I would urge organizations like Rainbow Push to be at those school board meetings and speak on behalf of people. Because sometimes I have students who leave from school and go to work so that they can help their families make ends meet, But at the end of the day, I mean, just thinking about an incident that happened 2 years ago, this is the season for gang initiation, right? The gangs know when to get the kids. Just like the politicians know what it is they're doing when they bring these bills to the floor. At the end of the day, they try to do things when nobody is paying attention or when people are so tired and they're so bombarded. At the end of the day, we all need to be vigilant, but sometimes we need people who are vigilant for us. Right? As an activist in the union, I speak on behalf of over 11,000 members. That's who I speak for in Brooklyn, right? As a national delegate, I speak for the members in my state. But at the end of the day, they can't all show up at every meeting I can show up for. They can't show up for every conference I show up for. They're not in the spaces where I'm voting on resolutions that we're bringing to the legislative bodies of our various states. So I have to be there to speak on behalf of them. And that's what this is about. Rainbow Push has always been at the forefront of speaking on behalf of those who've been marginalized. And we have to continue that support with organizations like Rainbow Push. I remember when I was at a school where it was just all Black and brown students. We went to the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed said, no, we're not going to give you funding for the programs. We're going to close the school down. But Reverend Jackson showed up. He brought people in to support programs that we wanted to start. And we had our students able to keep that school open for 4 years because of those programs that he helped to get funded. Right?
Ms. Jackson, you still have the two callers. Did you want me to put them through?
They weren't even showing up for parent-teacher conferences, but just one conversation. And I remember it clearly. We had the conference, Wall Street Project Conference, and I stood up and I said, Reverend Jackson, we need your help. 2,000 Black and brown kids. And what happened? First summer, those kids had a bull and beer investment camp, and it continued for 4 years after. Every one of those students graduated from high school with Regents exam scores of 85 or higher when the city thought that they weren't capable of doing it because they expected them to either end up as dropouts or end up in the prison system, right? And just with that voice, just with that one person saying to, those organizations that came in and helped us, we need you, our kids need you, you need to come and help support this school and these kids. We had those kids graduating with 80, that's mastery. 85 or higher is mastery and Regents exams in New York State. Every last one of them, every male and every female, not one of them graduated with a child as the city expected. Not one of them ended up in prison as the city expected. Every last one of those 2,000 kids went to college. And the city did not expect that because one person decided to take up that mantle and say, I'm putting an all-out call to everyone in the community to help these kids. And that's what we need to do. Yes, we expect parents to show up at school board meetings, but what happens when they can't? Do we have voices who can speak on their behalf? We absolutely do. Organizations like Rainbow Push have done it for years. We need to continue that. We need to continue that support. You, Dr. Malvo, you've always been a voice. I remember with Bennett College, you were always talking about your school. I've been at conferences and heard you speak, right? Very moving speaker, wonderful person to know. And I absolutely applaud your work over the years. You're somebody who we need to hear from a lot more. We need to make sure that when situations arise like this, that you're at the forefront of these fights, because we need people like you and CK and Mark and Dr. Reverend Todd Urey, right? A lot of these parents can't even speak English. They need those of us who understand to fight for them.
You've given me an idea that I want to just throw out, and perhaps we can explore that another time. But school board members are elected officials. They're paid. They're not paid a lot, but they are paid. What if we advocated for a quarterly Saturday meeting? I mean, that still will not, with all the parents, many parents are working, as you mentioned, 2 and 3 jobs. But if they met even quarterly, and most of them meet monthly, once every 3 months they met on a Saturday, which gave it more accessibility.
Could I add this? Dr. Malvo, just to interrupt, because I brought this to Reverend Jeanette Wilson. I said Push Excel should have PTA meetings.
Yeah.
And they could be virtual. And then you deliver them to the powers that be. I think we should be happy, because we are an advocacy group also. Dr. Malvo, you're the co-chair. What do you think? Or do you want to think it over?
No, I think it's a great idea. I will. In fact, as I've been talking to you, Reverend Wilson has been trying to blow up my phone.
Okay.
I will be talking to her about this. I think it's a great idea. I think it can be virtual. I think it can be recorded. I think it can be delivered. And I think there can be a demand. We need you to answer these concerns from parents and from others who aren't able to come on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. because they're coming from work, or they've got to feed their kids, or there's something to do. The way that our civic engagement structure is antiquated from the perspective that too much happens at the same time as parents are engaged in doing other things. We don't make it easy for people to participate. And one of the things we have to do is make it easier for people to participate.
Well, let me give you this. Historically, Rainbow Push, which was Operation Push, which was Operation Breadbasket, you had an education division. And within those divisions, you had teachers, you had parents, you had parent-teachers divisions, all of that. And they met during the week. And the Saturday morning forum was a culmination of all those meetings, and each of those groups would give a report, right? What I'm trying to do is reinstitute that, reinvigorate that, and make it national and global, which it was because of Reverend's talent, because he had legs then. But we can do that now. Because we should have the education division. You shouldn't just have a Push Excel program, which is great, and take people on a college tour, which is great. That's wonderful. But we should be meeting every month. If not, we met once a week. The youth division met once a week. The communications division met once a week. Media training was once a week. That's how you get people engaged. That's how you get people involved. And then on Saturday, you had a message that was wrapped around the news, but it gave you our perspective and the truth of the news. That's what we need to do right now. That's historically what we've done. I'm just simply asking us to do what we have done historically, which we stopped doing, but we have to go back to it. Okay? So when you speak with her,
you're absolutely right.
It's the history. It's the history.
Santita, as you know, I'm getting ready for the women's lunch and for a number of other things. I'm going to beg off and thank my colleagues for their wonderful insights today. I've got to try to catch up with Reverend Jeanette Wilson.
Okay, but I sent you and Marnie have been connected by text now, okay?
All righty, sounds good, Marnie. I'll
need her. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to say before I go?
No, Santita, I have to run too, but thank you for this. And let's just I hope we do follow up with action that can be coordinated with Rainbow Push and other organizations. And Dr. Marnie Reeves, what she said about being, her role in advocacy, and just coordinating the effort so that we can make a difference, because it needs to be through a coordinated effort.
Well, we can't have someone as talented as Marnie, as involved as Marnie, someone as close to us as Marnie, because Marnie is a worker bee. She gets to the conventions, all of them around the country, and you just see her moving dishes around the table. I mean, really, literally getting people in the door. You wouldn't know she's Dr. Martin Reeves from the City University of New York, from UFT, AFT, and in the New York public school system. It's only when you sit down and talk to her, and she's like, oh, yeah, oh, no, I'm Dr. Reeves. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I'm a CUNY. Yeah, 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 I'm there. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What? Who are you?
Well, let's go back to the first point.
I'm like,
no, absolutely. So I got to run, but thank you to everyone. And I will talk to you soon.
Oh, absolutely. She made me do that many a time. I'm like, what the hell are you? But let me bring on these two callers very, very quickly before we go, because I got to push out of here too. Anita, I love you. What's on your mind, sweetie? Is Anita there? Oh, Jewel? Well, I guess everybody is gone. Mark Fancher? Okay. Reverend Dr. Todd Ewing? Attorney Aaron? All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say, Dr. Reeves, before we go? Yes?
I just want to urge all the parents and the students to become more active, proactive, not performative. I really do believe that we need the voices of the students as well. We're talking about organizations, but we need to encourage students to be as active as the adults because they hear their voices louder than they hear the adults. We need to encourage that across the country.
Amen to that. Amen.
And I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you this article so that you can see what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, just keep in touch. Let us know what's going on at the convention. Let us know what the conclusions are, and let's work on this virtual meeting. Okay.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah, I think we need to. It's virtual. It should be virtual and in person. That's what
in person. It should be a hybrid model.
Yeah. Marnie, you know what we can do? Let's have a special Monday night show and do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's set that up.
So, let's do it next Monday. Let's have a special Monday. Let's not even wait on it. Let's just go on and do it.
All right, no problem.
And so gather up some of your people who you're with, and let's get them. And we can. I don't care if we have 100 people on screen. Let's do it.
All right, definitely.
All right, so let's do that.
I got you.
You're in charge.
Okay. Okay.
He was like, oh no,
another job.
You, honey, you know you're West Indian. You know you got tingle, and you love tingle. And since half my family's from that part of the world, and they got tingle.
Yeah.
Girl, when I went to Cuba, no joke, I have never met my mother's father, but I know he moved back to the Caribbean because he thought that the racism in America and the segregation was so abhorrent. He left when my mother was never to return. Never to return. He said this was absolutely horrifying. And I was so afraid I was going to bump into him down there. I was like, if I see him, what do I say?
What do you say?
Well, no, I didn't. I dare not take it to my mother. I took it to my father. I was like, Daddy, he said, you say hello, you give him a hug. He's your grandfather. He said, but he said, we've all paid a price. And so it's interesting. So I understand Tinjo.
My grandfather from Cuba, he saw me and gave me $1 and said, mark my words, what I'm giving you right now will be very meaningful to you. And trust me, I never forget it. I would never forget it because that's the only $1 he ever gave me. The only $1 because he felt you had to work for everything that you own.
Oh, wait a minute. Chicago News 101. Hold on. Said notice first she talked about black and brown. Now she's talking black. We can't have it this way because other races don't mention us when they get what they want. I hear you, and perhaps you're talking about me. The thing is, I do rainbow politics. No one can ever challenge my and my family's advocacy for black people. We've given you everything we could give you. My father can't even walk now. He's given you everything. And my mother, who's almost 80, is taking care of him with help. We've given you everything. But we know that we're only 13% of the population here. Our patch is not big enough And you have to help other people to mature so that they can understand their buy-in. When we had our Jackson 84, 88 reunion this weekend, a third of the audience were white people. Because these white farmers who felt that who had been told that they were trash, they said, after I listened to Jesse Jackson, I knew that wasn't true. And they came with their 84 and 88 T-shirts. They also served as a security force for Reverend. Because they said, we hear the talk out here, and we're not going to let anything happen to him. I hear you. The one thing I'm not going to sign up for is to be a tyrant. And I know sometimes we can be as tyrannical as the people and the forces that we have opposed. Enough. Right. Now, either Americans are going to grow up and start advocating together for one another, as one another, or we're going to die apart as fools. I will not back down off of my advocacy for Black people, because I know we have been specifically targeted and we've got some specific problems. But when I have my brothers and sisters from the Asian community, the AAPI community, and the Hispanic community, and the white community, when I have people who want to join in, my father's longest serving staff member was a white man who never betrayed him. I can't say that about many people, Black people who my father helped, but Frank Watkins never, ever, ever left, and he never betrayed him. After the racialism and the racism we saw in the Clinton campaign, the first one, because that's the way he had to campaign to try and jam Reverend, okay? Many of our Black people...
You should never have to apologize for who you are.
Oh, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me say this to you. Many of our Black staffers went to work for Clinton. They got a lot of money for it, and they had run these historic campaigns, so he wanted a piece of that. And guess what? They went to Frank Watkins. Frank Watkins said, you tell him this very clearly, and don't you miss a word. I will not work for a racist. And with that, he hung up the phone. So now you do this the way you do it. I'm going to do it the way that I'm doing it. And I'm going to include people, even as I fight for Black people, as I fight for Indigenous people. The people with the worst health and outcomes in the United States are Indigenous people. It's not Black people. Am I supposed to ignore them? Really? The genocided people, we put smallpox in their blankets, and some Black soldiers helped. What? I'm sorry, Marnie. What were you saying? I mean, I'm tired of that. I can't sing on every show and dance on every stage. I can't, and I'm not going to try. I'm a 60-year-old woman, honey. I turned 60 on Monday. I'm real grown. I think a lot of people don't understand that, Marnie. I'm very, 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 very grown. And if this is not good enough, I hear you. But I want you to know where I am coming from. You get in the political fight, and then you tell me how it works. As people try to count up Democratic and Republican votes, you try and win everything with just your tribe. It ain't going to work. So you got to figure out a way to get along with people. Marnie?
I feel that there are people who don't quite understand that you would not have a conversation about school to prison pipeline if there was no such thing. If there was equity across the board, if there was fairness, we need to have a conversation about a bill being put in through Congress that is trying to dismantle public education. The conversations that are being had, when you have conversations where it seems as if it's supporting one side versus another, and in this case, this conversation is not supporting one side or the other, because what people need to understand is when you cut 200,000 teachers, it does not only affect Black and brown students. It affects every child that enters into a classroom. And if anyone would question this conversation today, then they need to educate themselves about the population in the public school system. While we might be talking about a school to prison pipeline for Black and brown students, please do not kid yourself into thinking that white students are not a part of that pipeline at some point. The numbers might be less, but I can tell you the numbers of suspensions and removals in New York, and it is not limited to Black and brown students only. There are Asian students that are included. There are white students that are included. There are Native American Indians that are included. So please do not kid yourself into thinking this is a topic or a discussion about Black and brown students only, or advocacy for Black and brown students alone. This is a human problem. in America, we have a problem and a fight against human existence. The rights of every human being at its core is being torn apart. And instead of sitting in a box and thinking this does not affect me or the conversation is not about me, it is very much about you. It is very much about what you should be doing and what you can do. And if you're not understanding it, maybe you need to attend the Rainbow Push conference so that you can learn something. Maybe you need to be sitting in those board meetings to hear something. When they banned books, they did not ban books for just black students or brown students. They banned it for students in Florida. They banned the truth for students in Florida. They did not say teach it to the white kids, but not to the black kids. Every student in a Florida school had books banned. It wasn't one or the other. When they talk about LGBTQ issues, it is not a black LGBTQ issue or a white LGBT. It is the LGBTQ issue. Everyone gets affected. It is a human violation to cut funding to education. You're saying you want no one to learn because they don't know who's going to impact. They assume it will impact black and brown students only. But we're no longer segregated schools in America. Schools are integrated in America. And guess what? A white student gets impacted far greater because the expectation for a white kid is far more than it is for a black kid. So I want people to understand that when a conversation is being had, if that topic is discussing something and you're not comfortable, maybe you need to listen and open your mind up. You can't listen with a closed mind. Education in America is a human issue, not a black or white issue.
It's not. And if you read the Bible, we were separated as punishment. And I call out my brothers and sisters of all backgrounds when they don't advocate for black people. That's what part of what drove Warren's presidency. He said reciprocity is the order of the day. I can't vote for you and you turn around and not support me. We need each other. That's the dirty little secret about God. God has prepared a place for you in the table. God has prepared a place for you in the table with your own enemy. Because guess what? Your enemy is God's child too. Get over it. And you don't really have enemies. You have opponents. You have people with whom you agree sometimes and you disagree other times. I'm simply saying to you that this is how it is. So I hear you. And I don't know what else I can give to you. I really don't. And I'll continue to give. But when someone who's not been involved in the movement or someone who's been tangentially involved in the movement, I've had to leave my home in the middle of the night because people were trying to bomb it. And when you ain't helped me to move, I remember I got into Whitney Young, Marnie. It was the most prominent school in the state, one of the most prominent in the country. This woman who was very active in Push, she was in the choir. My father helped her out of all kinds of jams. I bumped into her downtown. I was a rising senior. Never shall forget it. I had been at Carnegie Mellon that summer, and those of us who were merit scholars and merit achievement scholars, they told us before the program ended, they told us who had made the cut because they had gotten that information, and they were very excited that just about everybody in the program was a merit scholar, right? Those of us who were in high school, because they allowed us to attend college, some high school seniors to attend college with college students for the summer. And so I called my parents. I said, I was hoping that this was true, but it turns out I'm a semifinalist, yada, yada, yada. And this woman bumped into me walking down. I was walking up State Street. I'll never forget. I was walking down State Street. She was walking up State Street. And she wanted her daughter to get into Whitney Young. But she was angry with me, Marnie. She said, well, of course your daddy got you in. And my father was so unpopular at this time that not a year later, The Harvard committee, Dr. Alan Counter, who was the professor on the Harvard admissions committee, said, "Your husband is so controversial, but your daughter's record is so strong. We had to fight to get her through committee. She was the most controversial candidate this year, Mrs. Jackson. And we fought real hard, but we finally got her through." He said, "And that's a tribute to your daughter." And my mother went off. And I can't even repeat to you what my mother said. My mother said, "I didn't even ask you to call me. I didn't ask you." No, she didn't ask you to call. You all sought her out. You sent her letters. You came to the school. You tried to come by our house because the top students in the country you were looking for. And my daughter is one of them. And she said, "I watched this girl not get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, studying all night long, studying all weekend, because I asked her to finish up top of her class and she came through for me." And this woman was angry with me. Well, of course your daddy got you in. She didn't even realize that every Saturday while we're sitting up there with Chicago police protection and black security from private security firms. I'm like, you don't understand that we're sitting living up under death threats every day? You don't get that the Chicago mayor cannot stand, Reverend? You don't know? I mean, this is the biggest opponent of the Democratic machine is Reverend Jackson. You think I walked into Whitney Young? I'm like, I can't give you enough. My politics are going to be what they are. Love it or loathe it. It's your choice. I'm going to advocate for Black people, and I'm going to ask other people to advocate for Black people because it's the right thing to do. But I want you to advocate, and I'm going to advocate for the indigenous people because they have worse health outcomes. It takes Black women 9.5, 10 months to make what a white man makes. It takes an indigenous woman a year. It takes a Latina 11 months. That's never going to be okay for me. A 19-year-old Latina girl, my mother was 19 when she had me, died on the wall in wire, miscarrying. And they wouldn't help her. I'm not going to lose my humanity in this thing, y'all. If it's wrong, I am going to fight it. If it's right, I'm going to lift it out of the trash can. Do with that what you will. Every super duper Black person I know turned out to be a Tom. And I put it right there. They became the most conservative, anti-Black people I've ever known. So you check that. You check the record on that. They were traitors to the people. Every last one I knew. They were super duper Black. Then they got an invitation to a palace or the White House, and all that went out the window. Please, give that to somebody else, honey. And you can say that about every community, anyone who really is deeply wedded to identity politics. When they get an invitation to the corridors of power, they go and they forget everything that they said they advocated for, and they absolutely jam everybody. Y'all got it. Got it. I'm going to fight for right. So when I shut my eyes for the final time, I want God to say, well done. And that's how I feel about that. And I'm not going to move on that. I'm not going to move. Not going to move. And if I'm wrong, God help me and move me. If I stand in your way and progress, I want to be removed. All these folks who are Blacker than everybody, who are more everything than everybody, please. I've seen y'all all my life. And I've not seen you stay in the struggle long. My father's ministry is more than 60 years old. And yes, D-Ray, he can walk a little, but it's hard for him. And he's giving you everything he's got. He's going to give it to you until he dies. And for some people, it's not enough. He's still having to beg people he made millionaires to give us, to contribute to the organization to keep the doors open. We're still struggling to meet payroll. You think about that. He'd never say it, but I do. Until you do right by me, everything you think about is going to crumble. You can't figure out how to do right by the people who've been trying to help you. You ain't gonna win. And I'm all right. Because the Lord, as my father says, hey, if you missed a meal, no. Ain't missed a mortgage payment, so I'm good. But I want you to understand what you ask of people and what you're unwilling to do yourself. You want other people to be perfect. You want the preacher to be perfect, but you don't want to do the spiritual lifting to purge your own soul and get clean yourself. Oh, but you're going to learn. I may or may not see it, but you're going to learn. We're all going to learn together. So before you ask of me, you try it. You try it. Honey, Jesus didn't die. Jesus was exhausted. So, Marty, he said, hey.
I'm here.
He said, look, I got you. I got you, boo. Yeah. Woo! After took that cross up Calvary, Golgotha, he said, okay. He got up and said, Father, why have you forsaken me? Oh, Lord. I've done everything you asked me. I mean, just exhausted. Best friend lie on you, all that. Enough, everybody. Let's learn the lessons. Let's move forward. Like I said, no, I hear you. Mm-hmm. Everyone, I mean, I laugh. I can tell you the folks who, once they get an invitation to the White House, all their advocacy for the least of these is going to go right out the window. I know people who sat in the Obama White House, and they heard things that Reverend would have objected to had he been invited, and he never was. But they said nothing. They said nothing as HBCUs were defunded. They said nothing. But they got out here talking junk. And they got out here telling you to shut up and don't say anything for 8 years. And look at where we are. So you figure that out. Because Reverend has run his race and I've almost run mine. You figure it out and you let me know how this is supposed to work. I love you. You figure it out. You figure it out. I love you. Marnie, you want to say anything else? Love you, girl.
No. You've actually said it all.
No, I said one or two things, please, before you get mad about something. But I love you, girl.
I love you too.
Okay, but give us a report on what you all conclude at this convention, okay?
Yeah, we're actually out of the convention. I sent you an article of a young lady who asked for.
I just saw that on download. Okay.
Yeah. Very interesting, and I think she needs to actually speak on this because this funding would affect a student like her. It would?
We haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, yeah. I know.
And maybe this is what needs to happen so people get engaged. So I love you, Marnie. When are you going home?
Love you too, sis.
When are you getting out there?
I'm back in New York, but I'm working.
Hang up. I gotta call you.
All right, no problem.
I gotta call you. I love you.
Okay, no problem.
Hang up. Call me right now. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.